What is it that makes a story scary? Is it shock factor? Or is it the uneasiness a plot can make you feel? In today's video, I'll be narrating 4 stories. The first 2 being stories of cryptids. The third, a story about a terrifying scare park that is realer than it seems. And the fourth, well, that one is a bit harder to explain. I hope you all enjoy these stories, that the authors, whose links are in the description, were generous enough to allow me to share with you. Remember, you can send in your own story to rylhstories@gmail.com. Likes and comments are always appreciated. Subscribing if you're new is as well. Enjoy the video, and as always, I hope you all have a great night. When something like this happens, it happens out of absolutely nowhere, with no warning. It's not some horror movie or a story where you know something is about to happen. I'm going to describe what I felt and what I saw. I've been looking for somewhere to share this, and hopefully, someone can tell me what happened. I had never heard of skinwalkers or anything before this. I wish I could say something cliche like I was on Skinwalker Ranch or my grandma is a Navajo or some shit like that, but I can't. I had never heard of the Navajo Indians or skinwalkers or anything, and I sure as hell didn't believe anything like that existed. I am 16 years old, and this happened this summer, June 9th, 2018. I grew up in the suburbs near Atlanta, so I had a completely normal life until this happened. I was off of school, so me and my dad went up to Denver to visit my uncle and aunt, and my cousin. I have no other cousins my age except for this one, so we were pretty close, and kept in touch often. His name is Charlie, but we share the same last name cause his dad is my dad's brother, so I won't use our last name. Charlie was pretty big on mountain biking, so he wanted to take me to some mountain biking trails in Apex Park. The trails are not far away from civilization at all, and we weren't even going to spend the night there. We went down a few trails and everything was fine, and we passed some people so we weren't alone. Absolutely nothing sketchy went down. It was hard to keep up with him, but he slowed down for me and we had fun. It was around 6 p.m. and we were heading back to where we parked. Charlie was 18, so we drove ourselves. This is the part where everything goes to hell. We are riding back. Charlie is maybe 20 feet ahead of me. Then the smell hit me. God, the smell. It was disgusting. At first I thought maybe we passed a dead animal or something. It was more metallic though, and it was very heavy in the air. Charlie stops but doesn't get off his bike. I slow down and stop next to him. He looks at me with a disgusted face. "Do you smell that?" The smell started to get stronger. It was so strong that I felt like gagging. Looking back, I wished that I had felt something watching us, or at least any indication that something was not right, so that we could have left or found somebody. I guess Charlie had heard stories about these things because I saw his face change from disgust to absolute terror as the realization hit him. In less than 1 second, something went by so fast and tore him off that bike. I didn't see it because I could barely process what was going on. I was still on my bike staring at the place he just was. Chills flooded my body so fast that my vision went black, even though my eyes were open. Then the adrenaline hit me. My brain pounding, but I had no thoughts. I didn't scream. Then I looked up. It was right there, so close to me. It looked down at me because it was huge. Maybe a couple feet taller than me. I wish I could tell you I didn't get a good look, but it's always crystal clear in my memory. It was like a wolf, but standing upright like a person. Its fur was matted and greasy and disgusting. But that wasn't what I was looking at. It had Charlie's face, smiling at me. The closest thing I can describe my reaction to is when people in Bird Box see the monsters. God, I am crying writing this right now. The smile was pure evil, but indescribable. Its mouth was way too big, and it was literally smiling from ear to ear. Then the eyes. God, the eyes. They were pitch black, but not glossy. Like the black that absorbs 99% of light. At first, I couldn't even tell if it had eyes. But they were blacker than empty, if that makes sense. It wasn't breathing, just standing absolutely still. I could feel the strength radiating off of it, like a power not of this earth. There was no sign of Charlie anywhere. No screaming, nothing. I knew I was next. I knew 100% I was going to die. My eyes flooded, but it wasn't like I was crying. The pure fear and chills just made my tear ducts run. Suddenly it dashed away so quick I felt and heard the air rush around me. I felt something grab my shoulder. "Kid, are you okay?" It was a fit guy in his mid-40s and his wife. I hadn't even heard them approach. Keep in mind that from Charlie saying, "Do you smell that?" to this guy grabbing me on the shoulder was about a 10-second span. All the things I just described were the emotions that were flooding me in that time, not actual thoughts. Then it hit me. I couldn't speak. I was gasping for air, my head pounding, vision blurry. "Are you okay, kid?" I just cried, and I was trembling so hard the guy thought I was having a seizure. I don't remember leaving the trail. I just remember getting to the exit, then getting to the hospital. Charlie is gone. After that, he went missing, but I know he is dead. They only found his bike completely destroyed. They sent a search party after him. No one believes me. They think he just got lost and or attacked by an animal. I went home. I have diagnosed PTSD now, and nightmares almost every night. My life has been completely destroyed by this, and I know nothing will ever be the same. I couldn't leave my house for a long time. The days after that I spent researching what this thing was, and the closest thing I could guess was a Skinwalker. It's nice to know I'm not the only one, and people actually believe each other. And there are people out there who will believe me, because right now, everyone thinks I'm fucking crazy. I've always hiked this particular trailhead. It was 6 miles from my house and was a good walk to warm up with. I tended to always hike with my German Shepherd Molly. She was a pretty big dog, big for her breed. On this particular day though, I've never been more grateful for her. Summer was nearly over and I wanted to get one more day of hiking in before it got colder. I packed up my bag, leashed up Molly, and I was out the door. I only planned to be out for a few hours. The path I normally take has smooth trails, and some rocky areas, which makes things interesting. Once we got to the trailhead, I bent down to check Molly's leash one last time, and started to walk down the path. The sky was clear, a slight wind was blowing through the trees as we walked. About 3 miles into our hike, I felt the leash go taut at my side. I heard a slight noise. Molly was growling. I looked around, trying to see if anyone was walking up or down the trail. Nothing. "Come on, baby girl." I had to pull kind of hard to get her moving again. I want to say I wasn't unnerved by this, but I know my dog. She doesn't just do that kind of thing. We walked for several more miles, until a sudden shaking of branches jolted me from my apparent daydreaming. Also the sound of Molly outright snarling had me suddenly looking all around. But the forest was silent again. Taking in my surroundings, I noticed a small pile of leaves. And looking past it, I noticed more. A trail of leaves littered the trail, behind and in front of me. It wouldn't have been weird, but these were still vibrant green leaves, and the breeze wasn't strong enough to blow them off the trees. I knelt to pick one up, grossed out when I felt a prickle of fur on one side. Deep brownish fur was stuck to it. A quick motion had me jolting to my feet again, as I watched small limbs and sticks fall from a tree directly to the right of me. Molly started barking frantically, while the hair on the nape of my neck stood on end. I started scanning the canopy, slowing down after each pass. Everyone knows the feeling they get when they're being stared at. Everyone knows that feeling of flying up the stairs to avoid the dark basement. That was me in this moment, feeling the need to run, but also the innate human curiosity to figure whatever this was out. The branches were moving too irregular to just be the breeze, like something was climbing through the branches. I just couldn't see it. Whatever I guess it was any animal, hell it was, absolutely did not want to be seen. In fact, every time I moved to get a better look, the branches would stop moving. That was when I kind of knew our hiking was done for the day. Molly as well seemed to relax little by little as we made our way back to the car. I was relaxing as well. I was starting to shake it off when I heard a branch break and plummet to the ground. Spinning around and looking up, I caught the briefest glimpse of what was in the trees from earlier. It was about the size of a grown man, at least from what I could see from the distance, and I saw one very long fur-covered arm swing rapidly to grab the nearest branch as it swung itself from my sight. What truly made me start running, frantic and erratic, gripping onto Molly's leash like a lifeline, was it was actively watching me now. I knew it. It had followed me from I honestly don't know when or where, and to my absolute horror I could hear the branches up above rapidly breaking, leaves falling so fast and I could visually see the limbs and leaves of those branches closing in on us as I ran. I ended up letting go of my grip on Molly's leash and sent her running forward, and she soon disappeared from sight. I saw the parking lot through the trees, but I celebrated too soon, and let out a bone-curdling scream as I felt the lash of pain across my back. I fell to the ground sobbing and screaming, immediately blocking my face with my arms as I felt the weight of this thing on me. Its claws dug into my legs and arms. I was going to die. I opened my eyes only once, and saw my death in the form of long fang-like teeth, and sunken-in black eyes, surrounded by mangy, brown, oily fur. But then I heard the fiercest snarl come from my left, and Molly clamped her mouth around the thing's scruffy neck, and dragging it away until with whatever strength I had, I hauled myself up and limped towards the car. Scrambling to get in, I rested my head against the wheel. Sobbing and bleeding heavily, I listened for Molly, hearing nothing but the sounds of growls and the snaps of teeth. Then finally she came to me, hauling ass towards the open door of the car, and right behind her was that otherworldly animal, stopping just on the edge of the tree line, hidden within the shadows of a tall pine. It too was limping, a large tear in its upper arm. I didn't look back as I slammed the door shut and sped away. The nearest hospital was 30 minutes, and I was so close to fainting. I managed to get to the receptionist's desk when I finally collapsed. It's been about 3 months since then. I still bear the deep, hideous scars of what that thing did to me. Molly survived. She still has a limp, and now is very protective of me, barely letting anyone close. I don't know what animal it was. The police and park rangers searched miles of trails and nothing. They found blood samples and fur samples, but when tested they came back inconclusive. It didn't match any known species in that particular ecosystem. I haven't hiked since then, partly because I'm still using crutches, and partly because something like this scars a person, physically and mentally. I haven't forgotten those eyes either. Those large, black eyes. And me, with my look of terror reflected in them, knowing I was its prey. "10 out of 10 best horror in the Pacific Northwest. Not for the faint of heart. Sila's Woods is the pinnacle of horror. Something about it felt so real." Melanie read the reviews of the newest scare park, that was taking the Multnomah County area by storm aloud, as if trying to convince me to go. I don't know why she felt the need to do so. I had gone to every frightening event that she had ever talked about. I loved the thrill almost as much as she did. Mel. I stopped her from reading the next part of the article mid-sentence. Let's do it. Next weekend? I turned around to face her, after sliding on my favorite silver necklace. Damn, you look sexy, Mel shot up, and looked me twice over. I had a date tonight, and although I certainly didn't feel sexy, I seized the opportunity to put on a dress I had purchased a year ago and never had a chance to wear. A tight-fitting pale yellow, with a floral design stretching down the side, matched with heels and hoop earrings. I take it back, I do feel sexy, and I'm gonna slay this date. Message received, 9:03 p.m. Hey Han, I'm really sorry but something urgent came up. I'm not gonna be able to make it tonight. Rain check for tomorrow? Or I'm not. The look on my face must have been pretty obvious, because when I looked up from my phone, Mel looked even more furious than I was disappointed. Oh no, he is not bailing on you again, she started, her voice rising with every no. I didn't even say. You don't have to, Hannah. I've been your best friend for nearly our whole lives. Listen, we are going to... Her eyes lit up as she came up with an idea. I hate that look. It always ends with us in a situation I would rather not be in. Mel began excitedly pointing at her phone, turning it around for me to see the time. We have 2 minutes. Swap into some flats. We are making it to Silas tonight. The feeling of rejection and submitting to sitting in my room another night alone was immediately replaced with a childlike excitement. I quickly did as my best friend had suggested and swapped my heels for a pair of black running shoes, which I decided were a better choice than flats. I wanted to change into more casual clothes as well, but we had to run right away if we wanted to catch the bus in time without waiting another 30 minutes. We managed to catch it right on time, and 20 minutes later we're arriving at the park's entrance. It was a sight to behold. Held just outside of the Portland city limits, Silas Woods was crafted out of the environment itself. There were hardly any signs and lights that would normally be seen around the start of a theme park, but rather everything was dimly lit, and a low orchestra type music was being played through the hidden speakers all around the trees, leading to the main gates. A stark contrast to the nerdy looking boy who was at the ticket booth, which had been nothing more than a hole cut into a rather large tree. He smiled, gave us our tickets, and went back to playing what looked like Fruit Ninja on the company iPad. Okay, I say fuck saving the best for last. Let's do the haunted walk first. Yeah? Mel spoke excitedly. I nodded and we made our way through the trails to the entrance, where there was a ridiculously long line. I mean, like, wait 2 hours long. Well, good thing we went here first. By the time we get in, the park will be closed, I rumbled, annoyed. Why did parks like these never seem to have lines that were manageable? Mel agreed, but seemed content to just sit around and wait. So we did. We ran through just about every conversation topic we could think of, ranging from how much of an ass Dan was being by canceling on me tonight, to Mel's nervous excitement about being the lead in the school's play that was set to start practice in 2 weeks. As we got closer, we started gauging the looks on the people who were leaving the park's faces, to see if everything that was in those walls really lived up to the hype. Some looked scared out of their minds, some were nervously laughing, and some showed no expression at all. Overall though, it seemed like more people were genuinely afraid, and that was good. One thing that I was beginning to notice, however, was that there seemed to be less people coming out than going in. At first, I struck it up to people getting lost in the maze, or me just not paying attention to when people were coming out. But as we got closer, it began to get more noticeable. Hey, does it seem to you like less people are coming out than going in? I asked Mel. She shot me a sly glance and a smile. Don't you try to scare me, Han. It's not going to work. No, I'm serious. I think... I was cut off by the attendant asking for our tickets, and quickly ushering us inside. Well, I guess it's too late to go back now. I must admit, I felt a little more anxious than I normally do, but maybe that's why this particular park is rated so high. Good on them. As soon as you walk inside the area designated for the attraction, you are confronted with the option to go right, which leads to a building that is flashing all sorts of lights and colors. Or going left into what looks like a cornfield-style maze. I motion left, and Melanie starts that way. We work our way around, the sounds of distant screaming and loud bangs of hands on loose metal, and of course the revving of chainsaws fills the air. My nerves are on end, as we creep through the hedges and stalks of corn. I can feel one of them stalking us, trying to keep quiet until the perfect moment to jump out and get us. The problem is, I don't know where he is coming from. It could be literally any direction. Finally, as we are about to leave the open field, and into what looks like a burned down barn, with similar flashing lights to the original building, if we had turned right, he gets us. Well, he gets Mel. I was about 2 feet behind her in a narrow hallway that only allowed one of us to go at a time, when he springs through the bushes, emerging between the two of us, and grabbing her shoulder before screaming in her face as she turns around. Hey, you are not allowed to touch me! Mel screams as she frantically backs away, after which the actor sprints back off into the hedges, giggling maniacally all the way. I hate when they do that. I can't help but laugh. I know deep down she was loving it, but she doesn't want to act like she actually got. I smile at her, and beckon for her to go through the door in front of us. No, fuck that. You lead this time. Mel puts her head down, muttering under her breath about how she's going to tell the man's boss he touched her, and on and on. I roll my eyes, and push forward, feeling a little better than I had before. The inside of the barn was made to feel very cramped and claustrophobic. Every hallway required for you to squeeze by a rag doll, or a stuffed pig carcass, or something equally as disgusting. Mirrors lined the walls showing rooms where unlucky patients were getting tortured or beaten. It felt extremely real, terrifyingly real. The sense of security I felt after Melanie had gotten jumped, and not myself, had vanished almost instantly. As we walked, the sound of metal scraping metal followed us. I grabbed Melanie's hand as we navigated the corridors, and screeched along with her as a man in a painting came alive and screamed at us. The rooms where visitors were getting tortured were getting worse, the screams becoming more bloody the farther we went. I rounded a corner, and immediately fell back onto my back as a man with a chainsaw stood waiting for me, turning it on and lunging at me with a dramatic effect. I let go of Melanie's hand for just a moment to brace my fall, and when I turned back to find her, she was gone. Melanie? I yelled, panic welling up in my throat. Mel, this isn't funny. I don't know where she could have been hiding, or why she felt like now was the best time to prank me, but she was going to get a firm scolding from me as soon as I could catch my breath on my own again. I then heard her crying for help, yelling, "Hannah, help me," and in that instant knew something was wrong. Melanie didn't scare easily, so the fact that they got one over on her earlier would normally have put her on a shutdown mode, but this was her screaming for her life. I turned to look at the man with the chainsaw, but he was gone. Raising to my feet, I sprinted in the direction of Melanie's voice. Somehow she had gotten ahead of me. I pushed past the junk hanging from the ceiling and completely ignored the rooms to the side, solely focused on finding my friend. "Hannah," she screamed again, but this time it was behind me once more. How? There was only one path. I turned back around, and at this point began to wonder where the next people in line were. Shouldn't they be following behind us soon? Maybe they could help us. A sickening thud shook my head to the left as a body slammed up against the glass to one of the torture rooms. My heart dropped. Inside I saw Mel, and she was being drugged backwards and tied down onto a table in the middle of the room. Her screams no longer audible as a rag was shoved into her mouth. Her eyes panicked, looking directly at me the whole time. I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. It didn't matter. Moments after she was tied down, the person in the room with her looked at me and smiled a bloody smile before jamming a twisted blade into her gut. I screamed, and I hate to admit it, but I ran. I wish I could say that I knew that there was hope for her, and I left knowing there was nothing I could do. But I was only saving myself. I was too terrified to do anything else. I managed to slip into a side room that I found. It's definitely one of the torture rooms, but there is no one here, and all the lights are out. I called the police about an hour ago, and they should have shown up by now, but I can still hear the screams out there. When I called the operator back, they could only tell me that 2 squads had been sent out, and that they would stay in the line with me until they got there. I was nervous that my voice would cause someone to find me though, so I hung up. I'm typing this out, huddled in the corner of a room that could very well be my grave. If anyone is near, please help me. I don't know how long I'll make it here, and I think I hear footsteps. Meet me at the place it began tonight at 8 p.m. I want to show you something. Yours truly, Les. I look at the note one last time to make sure it is Leslie's writing. The handwriting is neat with extra pen strokes on the capital letters. Something she always did. The note itself smells of her favorite perfume. As I fold the note into my pocket, I can't help but visualize her. Her fair skin and her ringlets of curly brown hair, and that cute smile she would always give me before we kissed. There is only one thing though with receiving this note. Leslie has been dead for a month now. A few days after Christmas, her car wrapped around a light pole. It took almost an hour to get her out of the car, with her body bruised and broken. They performed multiple surgeries for 3 days to save her, but on the 3rd day she screamed in pain one last time. It killed me inside knowing I could not even be close to her as she struggled. When they buried her, I watched from a distance, weeping alone. I visited her grave many times. Often I would do it late at night, when no prying eyes are around. Now I am standing at the rusted gate of our special place, the plot of land outside of town. It has a history. It's hosted many stories, tales of triumph and glory, accounts of despair, the bonds of love. They have all showed up here at the old drive-in theater. I can imagine this land being full of cars watching movies back in the day. These days though, it's another run-down relic, with occasional teenagers hanging out or 2 adults on a rendezvous. This old drive-in holds a special place for me and Leslie. We made love here for the first time. Now I am standing outside this dilapidated drive-in, reliving my memories. I understand the allure and charm of this old lot, even if it has seen better days. I can imagine the old concession stand, now covered with crude spray-painted words, used to host long lines. People waiting for their popcorn, drinks, and candies before the movie. The other building towers over the old concession stand. The old projection room is in there. The equipment is still there. I know because the 2 of us have been inside. It points to an old wooden screen. The white background is cracking, and the posts holding it up seem to be rotting away. I look around the vacant lot. No one seems to be here but me. I don't know what drew me here because she is dead. I'm left with the emptiness I have felt since I heard at the bar that she passed. She was the only thing keeping me in this shitty small town. Now all that is left is the loneliness. The guilt of not saying goodbye. Unfortunately, our love story was a complicated one. I'm a fool for thinking anything could come out of showing up to this drive-in. As I turn to leave, I hear a high-pitched noise, almost like feedback coming from the speakers.
So what brought you down here?
A voice asks over the crackling speakers. The sound of the voice stops me as I turn to look around the drive-in. It sounds like Leslie. The speakers hum in unison as a light flickers above me. A movie plays over the screen. That is when I see her face. That smile of hers. I would know it anywhere. I watch as I hand her a drink. I just wanted a change in scenery. I figured why not see more of the country. How about yourself? Are you from around here? Born and raised, Leslie said as she gave me another smile. I'm pretty sure this place is very different from Oregon. It's a bit different, I replied, as I grabbed a glass filling it with beer for another customer. I enjoy how warm it is down here though. She smiles again as she sips her drink, as I return her smile with one of my own. The scene was the first night I met her, and I knew on that night there was something special about her. It was the start of our romance, a complicated one, but I loved her nevertheless. A cigarette burn comes on the screen as the scene changes. I see Leslie in tears as a man approaches her. I can see the red mark on her cheek as he slaps her again. That is when I see his face. It's her husband, a god-awful man. I turn my head away from the screen, for it is too much for me to stomach. The screen begins to flicker again as I am left in confusion of how I am watching our story play out on a movie screen. Another burn mark appears, and it shows the two of us on our first time at the drive-in. I remember that night. She had stopped by the bar and said she needed to get away, somewhere where there were not as many gossipers. We found ourselves at this rundown lot. I can still remember the somber look in her eyes, a woman who was being broken. I tried to comfort her that night. That is where our affair began, when we shared our first kiss. She wiped a tear from her eye. I need to get out of this town. I want to go far away and never look back. You need to leave him first, I said, as my hand grabbed hers when she finally broke down crying. I watch as the two of us kiss again on the screen. I don't know how this is happening as I look up to the tower that holds the projector. Someone else is here at the drive-in with me, and I intend to find out who. What is this? I yell at the tower as I run towards it. I enter the tower as I climb the wooden stairs to the top. My ears still hear all the speakers crackling again. The high-pitched buzz is almost deafening as I see the door into the projection room. Someone else is inside here. I pick the door open violently to find nothing. The room is empty, not a soul inside. The room, though, has pictures covering the walls. It is pictures of the two of us at the drive-in. Every kiss, cuddle, everything. I notice next to the projector is a small note next to another speaker. It reads, "Finish the movie." I look outside the projector room and back to the screen. It's another scene of a figure sitting in the car, looking on the bar. I watch as Leslie, and I walk out as another person watches on. The two of us embrace and kiss. The camera cuts over to Leslie as she smiles. I will file for divorce after the holidays, she said as she rubbed my face. After that, let's get the hell out of Coleman. We will never look back. The camera then reveals that the mystery figure in the car is Leslie's husband. My heart sinks to the realization he knew about our affair. I look around the room looking at the pictures. Did he set all of this up? The speaker crackles again as I turn to watch the screen. I watch as he surprises her with a gift. I don't see what exactly he gave her before the screen flashes to Leslie driving. I hear the crashing of her car as the screen turns black. Credits roll with our names as I cry in the room. The screen goes white again. The speaker begins that deafening high-pitched sound once more. I look forward with tears as more cigarette burns appear before cutting to a new scene. That is when I see her face again, on the close-up, almost like she is staring at me. It's Leslie with tears in her eyes. She sobs. "It wasn't an accident that took me away from you. He planned it and killed me." I leave the room and run down the stairs outside to the lot, and toward the front of the drive-in. "You're dead," I shout to Leslie's face on the screen. "How are you doing this?" "There is a way that the two of us can be together again," she tells me before the screen goes black, now cutting to me on the big screen. I now see myself as if someone is recording me live. I think I am going crazy as the screen mimics every move my body makes. Something else happens too. The concession building behind me lights up. I pause before turning to see that the concession stand is now with power. That this is actually happening. Whoever is doing this wants me to check it out. When I walk to the building, I look inside the window. I notice a person tied to a rusting metal chair with a hood over their head. The thing that really throws me off is what sits at the feet of the captive person. A strange looking knife. When the door opens as I enter, the screams happen from underneath the hood. They struggle in a panic trying to free themselves as I walk over to reveal who is restrained to the chair. I see Leslie's husband, with a look of fear in his eyes.